What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 48 of the Hoop Venue podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend, Sean. Last night, the Thunder beat the Timberwolves in 5 games. They actually just demolished them. They held them to 32 points in the first half, 14 turnovers and 12 made shots for Minnesota in the first half. That game was over by the end of the first quarter. It was a complete blowout. I actually ended my playback stream at halftime because I was ready to go to bed. I did not need to watch
that
the end of
bad?
It was that
I mean,
bad.
like you were that disinterested?
It was that bad. Yes, I ended the playback stream 2 quarters early. First NBA Finals appearance for the Thunder since 2012, and to honor that, we want to go back and look at this entire season in hindsight and talk about what was one of the greatest team defensive campaigns of all time. Just start to finish, just an absolute masterclass of a defensive season. And Sean and I are going to try to figure out, like, where does this defense stack up against the other greatest defenses of all time and whatnot? So we're going to get into all of that today. Sean, I'll let you take the floor, man. Where do you want to start this convo?
I think we start the combo with the Thunder personnel and their defensive coaching. I think that's where you start the conversation, that we can kind of, work our way to the all-time discussion. I think number one is, and I think you discussed this in a reel you just posted, cheap plug, is they don't have a bad defender on the, they don't employ a legit liability. The first name that you could kind of maybe, complain about is Isaiah Joe because he's just small, but in terms of, technique or effort or anything like that, he's not a bad defender. He's just small, and that's why, you have the Denver series where he doesn't play a lot, for example.
Yeah, I'd say of their, top 12 in the rotation, the 3 weakest defenders are Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and J. Will. And, all of them are fine.
Yeah, they're all perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the meat and potatoes of the roster, which is, your starting five, Shai, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, Ihart, and then Case and Caruso. And, that's 7. Who am I missing?
Say it again? Who are you missing?
Off the bench, I said Caruso, Kaysen.
Caruso, Kaysen. Well, did you already do the double bigs?
Yeah, I did the all starting 5.
Then that's their top 7. That's
okay,
and then they can go to Wiggins, Joe, or J. Will or whatever.
So you talk about the top 7, all those guys are
I'll say Kenrich Williams too, also an elite
Kenrich
defender.
Williams, sure. All those guys are good to elite defenders. And it starts with their insane perimeter versatility. And I'm sure one of us or both of us has, some examples from the series or just in general, but there were moments in game 5, for example, where they were able to just go, okay, cool, we're going to play Chad at the 5, and we're just going to run Shai. I think one of the lines specifically was Shai, it might have been Shai, Dort, Caruso, Kaysen with Chet. That might have been the grouping. And we're just going to switch 1 through 4. We're going to keep Chet on the baseline. And if in the off scenario, one of our 4 guards get beat off, our wings get beat off the bounce, okay, cool, we have top 3 rim protector on the planet coming over, top 5 rim protector on the planet coming over and being ready to contest at the rim. And then also they're off-ball awareness for the most part. I'm specifically thinking of Caruso or a J-Dub or honestly, all the guard / wings except probably Shai. Shai probably has the weakest off-ball. I don't know. Shai's not. I don't want to make it seem like Shai's a bad off-ball defender.
No, I get what you're saying though. Sometimes he falls asleep. He ball watches a lot. He ball watches a lot.
But there's again possessions where you would think, okay, Ant gives the ball up, you do your job at your shell defense. Okay, cool. Now we're gonna stay and deny Ant or whatever. There's possessions. Dort got an amazing steal, I think, on a Julius Randle drive off of a Ant kick out or just swing pass. Gets the deflection because we're not just ball watching or being hugging Ant away from the ball. That's how Caruso has 3 steal, or he has one in particular where just switches off of Gobert and immediately times the steal. He has another one where he's guarding the ball or he's guarding one pass away, gets a great deflection and it leads to a steal, and he bobbles the catch, but he eventually gets in and able to run out. But you see that from everybody. So just their off-ball awareness IQ in terms of, one, we're going to be able to guard the ball and pressure with elite pressure and some of the physicality they maybe get away with, but just elite pressure in general. Combine that with the off-ball IQ, and then combine that with the fact that they have Chet at the rim, and what Dagnall does in terms of their shell defense, how far over they are into the lanes, and they're going to give up some corner threes, which if we're doing a mini preview here for like 30 seconds, Pacers Thunder is going to be so interesting in that regard because the Pacers are just going to be able to get, I think, some of those corner threes that they want based off how OKC plays defense, but it's also because OKC is the best team in the past 20 years at just rotating. Their rotations and how they're able to peel off or just scramble out of scenarios, they'll give up open shots. They give up Jaden McDaniels like 2 wide open left corner threes early in the first quarter. But they were completely fine with that. That's how they play defense. On they're going to rotate and they're going to lead the one person they want on that possession open, and that possession is Jaden McDaniels. So I think that's honestly where you start, man. They're elite personnel, elite coaching, and just the awareness and just overall defensive IQ that basically 1 through 9 has.
Yeah, you talked about Chet's rim protection and being like a top 3 to 5 rim protector in the NBA or whatever. There's also like the rim protection by committee in a bunch of unconventional ways. Like, for example, actually in a traditional sense, Shai is one of the best rim protecting guards in the league. J-Dub's one of the best rim protecting wings in the league. Kaysen, Dort, Caruso can all get up. Ihart's obviously still a very, very good rim protector as well.
Yeah.
All of their guys across the board, you can trust to execute a vertical contest or even just a swipe down.
Dort has an amazing chest wall up on Ant, I think in the second quarter of Game 5.
Yeah, so they have a bunch of guys. So when they're in rotation like that, if Chet gets spaced out, for example, or he gets pulled into the action, there's still always going to be someone rotating over that can at least offer a little bit of resistance. And that means a lot because you look at some of these other teams, like Knicks, for example, when Brunson's the one rotating over, there's no resistance there. Yeah. And it's like you can manipulate the spacing in a certain way that will make it so Brunson's the guy making that rotation. Whereas with OKC, there's not really anything you can poke at and be like, okay, we want this guy to be the guy rotating. Well, no, he can still rotate. Or we want this guy to be the one switching out. Well, no, he can also switch across the board. So it's like there's nothing to poke at all. And then you get the rim protection by committee thing that I was talking about where always keeping the ball in front of them. Like dribble penetration is nearly impossible. I actually think Ant deserves a world of credit for still being able to penetrate that defense consistently, even while seeing 3-4 bodies. But like 5. Yeah, all of their guys are nearly impossible to get around. Whether it's Kaysen on the ball, whether it's Dort, whether it's J-Dub, they'll pressure the ball at half court and you still can't get around them. You can't lose them with screens because they're all elite at navigating screens and they can all switch between each other. And then you have the gap defense, the gap help, like where it's you're able to finally get around your man. Now you're basically seeing a wall. And they're all so quick with their rotations that not only are they going to be able to get back out if you make the right kick-out pass, like they're going to be able to get back to the three-point line and run those guys off the line, they're so good at playing the gaps that you probably can't even make that pass. Like they have like 4 or 5 guys who are all prone to getting 5 deflections in a game. And that's kind of the superpower of this OKC defense that we've talked about all season. It's the fact that they're going to force like 15 to 20 turnovers and there's nothing you can do about it. Like it doesn't matter if they're trying to run through Randall or Nas Reed in the post like they were in Game 5. Bunch of turnovers there. It doesn't matter if you're trying to make a skip pass over the top. They're going to pick off a bunch of lanes. It doesn't matter if you're trying to lob it up to the big man. They're going to tag from the low side and just break that up. Like by the end of the game, they're going to have forced like 15 or 20 turnovers and there's nothing you can do about it. And that just gives them such a high floor. And that's actually the most thing I'm excited for. I'm not ready to just jump and say the Pacers made the finals. I know better than to do that because the series isn't over yet as of the time we're recording this. Obviously, I'm expecting them to get there. But like the Pacers are also the ultimate team that doesn't turn the ball over. So I think that's going to be the most interesting thing to track. And also, not to go off track because we are trying to focus on OKC's defense here. I want to make it known that the reason they're able to field out most of these lineups is because of Shai's floor raising on offense.
Yes.
What he's able to do as an isolation creator and as a shot maker over the top of defenses, his ability to attack an early offense before the defense gets set, all that good stuff. You can put out lineups of 3 or 4 all defensive first caliber defenders who maybe aren't big offensive threats because of that. And I think that's one thing a lot of people missed when they talk about like the Thunder won 68 games, and that's why Shai won the MVP. Whereas, like, the reason they're able to even run these types of lineups and be the all-time great team that they are in the first place is because of Shai's heavy lifting on offense. And also shout out to J-Dub because he really showed up in the conference finals. But yeah, OKC's defense, I mean, there's really nothing you can poke at. And then Mark Daigneault uses all of the tools beautifully to just throw these absolute curveballs at offenses. Like, I think the first curveball we kind of saw in these playoffs was they put Caruso on Jaren Jackson Jr. in the second quarter of game one. And then stuck with that throughout the series. And it was kind of like, oh, I mean, that's something you can kind of expect, a wing on a post-up guy. But to lean into it that much was pretty cool to see. And then you get the Game 7 adjustment against Denver where it's, okay, now we're going to put Caruso on Jokic. And we're going to front every post touch. We're going to crowd him every single time he touches the ball. And it's like, you end up with Caruso on Jokic in just this insane curveball. And then they throw a curveball in the fourth quarter of game 4, which is we're going to put Caruso on Gobert, and then we're going to switch every ball screen against Ant so that you can't get your pull-up three. And it's like Caruso being as versatile as he is as a guard unlocks all of that. But it really comes down to the fact that there's just so much this defense can do, so little to point at as a weakness, and they're utilizing it all to just shut off every offense they go up against.
So I have an interesting question for you because I was just thinking about it in my head as you were talking. And we're talking about purely from a technical like standpoint, not personnel or like versatility or any of that stuff. Which defense, if we're in this does have to be a part of the all-time great conversation, but which defense is technically more efficient, I guess you think? Is it this one or like peak Warriors, like Draymond in his peak defensively? Those
define
kind of
efficient.
teams.
Like when you say most efficient, what do you mean by that?
Like in terms of their ability to, again, from a technical standpoint, not necessarily because of their personnel or their versatility or anything like that, to consistently force the opposing team to have their worst possible offensive outcome, like really tough shot, real bad turnover, something along those lines. Basically, eliminating the high quality looks. That's maybe a better way of explaining that. Consistently,
and you're saying from like a schematic standpoint, is that what you're saying?
Sure,
because you're saying not personnel, but like that that does feel extremely personnel based.
Okay,
where it's like you mentioned with Draymond, having a guy like Draymond pretty much just like gives you a huge boost in that category because he's never going to waste a movement on the court and he's always going to be in the right spot at the right time. That kind of applies to Caruso as well. Another defense that I'd kind of throw into that group, I'm like dodging the question for now, but like a couple variations of the recent Celtics teams feel like they deserve to be in that mention
like
as well.
Last year maybe.
Or like 22 even, that finals team with Rob Will.
Yeah.
It's tough to say. I want to say the difference in league between when the Warriors peaked and when the Thunder are peaking right now immediately gives an advantage to the Thunder because there's more pace, more space to cover, more rotations to make, smarter offenses, things like that. So I'll give the edge to the Thunder.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's
crazy,
fair.
Which is crazy to say. I will say also, not that Steph's necessarily a weak link, but I will say, and this I guess this kind of brings it back to personnel. I will say of the starting
bad
fives,
job by me explaining that.
Of both starting fives, Steph to me clearly feels like the most limited defender. I guess the discussion would be between Steph versus Shai, probably.
It's Shai, probably easily.
Right. And then also the Warriors kind of had gimmicky size at times. After Andrew Bogut, it was like, now we're going to get Jordan Bell or JaVale McGee or Zaza. Whereas OKC has legit all defensive caliber big, like close to two of them, that you can always rely on to bring an impact. And I think that's kind of the difference. So like the Warriors were able to catch the league off guard by just going, okay, we'll just put Draymond at the 5, go to this death lineup with Steph, Clay, Iggy, KD, Draymond. Good luck. And yeah, that obviously was amazing, but they didn't have that type of Chet Holmgren presence. That I think makes things a lot easier and allows you to get more creative with your pre-switching and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, OKC is just insane. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. It's insane. Like I was thinking about because I'm working on a video for the OKC's playoff defense or just defense in general, I guess. And I was kind of looking at like, okay, they've seen three like vastly different offenses in the playoffs, and they've been just fine again in like every scenario. Like every question mark has been answered. When OKC had their historic regular season, which by the way, they held opponents 6.9 points below league average in the regular season, which is 13th all time. So just for the sake of conversation, we're going to refer to this Thunder regular season team as the 13th best defense of all time. When they did that, there were still question marks heading into the playoffs. It was how will they be able to handle offensive rebounding? How will they be able to handle size? How will they be able to handle post-up players? Will they be able to stop a slasher like Ant? Will they be able to stop a transition offense? And we've seen the highest volume transition offense in the league, Memphis, not get anything in transition. We've seen Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the best mismatch hunters in the league, not be able to attack a mismatch. We saw John Morant, one of the best slashers in the league, struggle to get to the rim. Then we get to the Denver series. We saw one of the best pull-up shooters in the league in Jamal Murray struggle to get to his pull-up jumper consistently. We saw the best post-up player since Shaq struggle to do anything in the post and essentially have to play point guard for half of the series. We just they also were able to keep him off the glass meaningfully well when it mattered. Obviously, he had some big rebounding games in there. Then you get to the Minnesota series. They're able to take away a 40% pull-up three-point shooters, pull-up three for 3 out of the 4 games, or 4 out of the 5 games. My fault. I thought it was a sweep for a sec. They're able to keep Ant out of the paint. They're able to completely take Randall's post-ups out of the series altogether. They're able to limit spot-up shooters across the board. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. They've seen 3 vastly different offenses with all types of different weapons, athletes, archetypes, player builds, and they've responded by just shutting off their water every single time.
And honestly, with OKC, because there's been people on my match say like they got taken to 7 games, right, in a discrediting way to OKC. They got taken to 7 games by a mediocre or whatever in air quotes Nuggets team. Okay, that's just a credit to the fact that Denver has the best player on the planet, and like I've kind of said, like the most convincingly best player on the planet since peak Bron. And that's kind of what it was, where Jokic in said series against OKC had 28, 14, and 6 on like 59% true shooting. And by the way, that's considered a bad series for the best player in the league, or average or slightly below average. I'm not going to go bad series, but that's a slightly below average series for the best player on the planet. And even then, like you said, they made that series so uncomfortable for him and for the second best player by taking away his pull-up 3, like you mentioned. OKC's just preparation and, like you said, how they can kind of chameleon their way through different series and be able to just adapt to each situation. It's like honestly just impressive. And if we're not talking about the way they dominate possessions and how they are going to force a billion turnovers, it's just their way to adapt to different environments and different archetypes of players, like kind of like you mentioned.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Just to really put a pin in that conversation, I used the numbers for my tweet and my short earlier, but I'll read them again here. In the first, relative defensive rating, there's a few different ways you can do it. A lot of people will look at the league average from the regular season and then how that translated to the playoffs. A lot of people will look at the league average from the playoffs and talk about just like their defense above the rest of the competition in the playoffs. The way I like to look at it is over the 82 game regular season, what was your offensive rating? And then in just these games against this defense, what was your offensive rating in the playoffs? And so just to, after describing that, that's my methodology behind finding relative defensive rating. Basically, how far below average did you hold your opponent's offense from what they typically produce? And obviously, it's kind of like not an apples to apples comparison because the game is just officiated differently in the playoffs. So there's probably like some kind of mental curve there, very differently.
Clearly,
very differently. So it's obviously there's definitely some regular season inflation going on. So take these numbers with a grain of salt, but it's just to kind of highlight the types of conversations the Thunder are currently putting themselves in. So in the first round against the Grizzlies, they held the Grizzlies 19.4 points below their average offensive rating from the season. In the second round against the Nuggets, they held them 15 points below their typical average offensive rating, which is insane to think about because the Nuggets are usually kind of a scheme-proof offense, and Jokic still got his game off. So for both of those things to occur and then still be 15 points below your average, it's just insane to me. And then Minnesota actually performed by far the best of any opponent. They got 3.3 points below their average in this series, and that was a result of some hot shooting. It was a result of Ant, like I said, generating deep paint touches against 5 defenders consistently. I actually think games 2 and 3 from Ant were the 2 best games he's ever played in his career. He shot like 1 for 8 or 1 for 9 from 3 in game 2, so the box score doesn't quite do his performance justice just because of variance. But like from a process standpoint, I think games 2 and 3 of the OKC series were the 2 best games Ant has ever played. And yeah, they got held to 3.3 points below their average offensive rating, which averages out to the Thunder holding their first 3 opponents 12.4 points below their average offensive rating from the season, which among finals teams in NBA history, this goes back to like the shot clock. So 1956, I think, among all teams to make the finals, that surpasses the 1964 Celtics for first all time. Some other notable teams, you got the 04 Pistons. They were negative 10.7 points below average. The 90 or the 71 Bucks, 9.5 points below average. The 2019 Raptors, 8.6 points below average. 2024 Celtics, 8.4. 2021 Bucks, 8.6. 96 Bulls, 8.3. So these are the types of teams we're talking about. Like the Thunder held their opponents to a worse offense than the peak Bulls, the peak Celtics, the peak Raptors, the peak Bucks, all these teams, the peak Bill Russell Celtics. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I think relative to era, this team has an argument to be the best defense ever, which is the discussion we'll get into. But if you just ignore the era and just isolate like defense for defense, is it even a discussion? Like, is this not just the best defensive team ever pretty comfortably?
If we're not going for era, then yeah, I think this is
like
probably...
if it's just because obviously the game's advanced, but like imagine you give this Thunder team with the knowledge they have, the scheming they have, the personnel they have, and show them a 1996 offense.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
like
God.
it's like what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, like I think that the discussion for that reason,
respectfully having to see them play against the triangle, like all right.
Yeah, for that reason, the discussion has to be relative to era. It has to be.
Yeah. What would be the few teams that you have in that kind of conversation?
Well, I was actually gonna go like back in time and just kind of ask you about defenses that come to mind, and I basically like we'll just go like which one are we picking?
Okay.
Until we get to like the heaviest hitters, because I think there are some that I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Even just from this century. So the first few that come to mind, and we can maybe rattle through some of these. 2024 Wolves, they were a recent one. Actually, pretty crazy. I said that the Thunder held their opponents in the regular season 6.9 points below average. Wolves were 6.7. So they're like regular season for regular season. We're talking about similar defenses from a statistical standpoint. But yeah. I think the selling point is Dallas was able to exploit something in Minnesota that would not exist with OKC.
Yeah.
Like
so,
there's nothing
it's OKC over Minnesota.
Yeah, pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
2022 to 2024 Celtics. Any version you want. I think 22 was the best they ever were defensively, probably.
I think 22 or 23. So what? Well, or wait, no, it'd be 22 or 24 because 24 would be last year, the title year. I still go OKC, even though like that is honestly from a historical lens, that's an underrated run of like just great defenses. That's a really underrated run.
Like playoff versatility. They were kind of the team that first unleashed like what it looks like to be able to switch everyone on everything.
Yeah.
Like and then you just couldn't create dribble penetration, especially the final series last year where they put Tatum on the 5, switch everything. But yeah, I also would take OKC. 2022 Warriors.
I think there's just like a better version, I think, of this same Warriors one. I'm probably going 17 over this one personally. So I think even though like this is Draymond. But again, like still, no, OKC.
Okay. I think, yeah, I do think this is the last version of like peak Draymond Green, so that makes it interesting. Also, Wiggins being just an all defensive first caliber defender for the whole playoff run. Huge deal. GP2. This might have been the best defensive version we ever saw of Steph. I actually think so pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
They were a great rebounding team between Looney, and they also had like Porter Jr. as another versatile wing kind of guy. Clay was still
the one good year we ever got out of
1 year in general.
Yeah.
Okay, I also would take the Thunder, but I think that's an interesting combo. Actually, to kind of pivot, 2022 Warriors to 2022 Celtics defense.
I'm personally going 2022 Warriors. Personally,
that's a tough one. That's a super tough one.
That's a tough, yeah. Like you said, it's just the versatility, the ability to just switch with Boston. But I'm probably going Golden State personally.
Yeah, I think
that's close.
I couldn't even answer that one. I just wanted to put you on the spot. I couldn't even tell you. Okay, so we've got the Thunder as the best defense going back to 2022.
Okay.
The next team I have is the 2020 Bucks, which I want to say the 2020 Bucks held their regular season opponents 7.7 points below average, which is 6th all time.
This is Giannis Defensive Player of the Year.
Giannis Defensive Player of the Year. They were the 6th best regular season defense of all time, which was the best in 12 years up to that point. You've got Brook Lopez at his peak as a drop defender. You've got Giannis as your low man. You've got Bledsoe as your go-to point of attack guy. You've got this is the year before Drew Holiday. You've got I guess you could also throw the 2021 Bucks in there if you want to like prefer their playoff defense if you get Holiday in there, but I think it's either or. It's kind of splitting hairs. Chris Middleton was a really, really good defender at that point.
Yeah. I'm still gonna go OKC. I think
I'm giving the Thunder the edge for the sole reason of schematic versatility. I think the Bucks played a specific brand of basketball that worked against almost every team. The drop coverage, the aggressive roaming from Giannis, and all that good stuff. You could throw Giannis at the 5 and do some more traditional stuff with that, which I would say actually goes more into 2021's argument. But I think OKC can do more. They have more schematic versatility and they have more versatile man defenders across the board. So I agree. 2019 Raptors. I think this
I'm more
is
so thinking about that.
I think the Raptors is the best defense I've named so far, by the way.
Just in the number of guys they had.
Yeah.
Like the start 5 that year was Kyle, Danny, Kawhi, Pascal, Mark.
Yeah.
And then you got young OG, Fred off the bench.
I mean, that was pretty much
Surge.
Yeah, that was the rotation right there, right? That was the rotation, I feel like.
Those 8.
Who's the weakest defender in that lineup? Is it
like low?
It can't be Van Vliet. It has to be Ibaka.
Is it Loki? I was about to say, is it Loki like Mark or Surge?
It's definitely not Mark. Definitely that Mark was crazy, dude. That Embiid series. Oh, Marc Gasol in 2019 was insane.
That was that year.
The weakest defender. Oh, Norman Powell was in their rotation. I forgot he played as many minutes as he did. So he's obviously the quote unquote weak link. And OG didn't play a single playoff minute.
So I said OG before the guy that actually played. Give me a year early with OG minutes.
Yeah.
Give me a year early.
Yeah, so I would say Norman Powell is the obvious weaker link, but if you go to a 7-man rotation, Serge Ibaka is your worst defender. And also, I would say that's obviously far past peak Kawhi, but you still get just like this all-world caliber man defender.
I still think I'm going to OKC.
Why? What gives you the edge?
I'm going to OKC because if we're going like just pure defensive talent, I think OKC in that series have the 2 best defensive players in that series. Arguably 3.
You're saying Caruso and Chet?
Caruso and Chet, yeah. 3 might be a stretch. But I think they have the 2 best, plus the scheme versatility, I'm going to OKC.
I agree with you. I think Caruso and Chet, but I will say I think Mark is a clear 3 above anyone else OKC has.
Okay, Mark is 3, and then what? Does OKC have 4 or 5?
2019 Kawhi versus like J-Dub Dort. I would give that to Kawhi.
Okay, cool.
Toronto
has 3, 4. OKC has 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with it. I will say One thing that I think maybe gives the Raptors a slight not advantage.
Their size.
That also, I think Kyle Lowry and Mark are very clearly the two like highest IQ game managing defenders in this whole discussion. In terms of like almost structuring the defense in a way, like communication, being in the right spot at the right time always.
That's fair.
Like two like on court coaches almost, because they're just two of the smartest defensive players ever. Also, I want to say, keep in mind, this is completely relative to era. So I think obviously Thunder, skill for skill, like talent for talent, personnel for personnel, easily the better defense. But as we start going back more and more in time, the game starts to drastically shift. And then it becomes like a lot different. But I agree with you. I'd take the Thunder. I think the Raptors are clearly the best team out of the group I've named so far.
And then you also have that psycho and Nick Nurse as the head coach.
That too. That too.
I would actually argue, I think, in terms of, I maybe slided Toronto. I just thought about it that I brought up Nick Nurse. I think I might have slided Toronto a little bit in terms of scheme versatility and amount of like batshit just crazy things that Nick Nurse like can pull out in terms of adjustments, in serious adjustments or whatever the case may be. I'm still going to OKC, but this is, I will agree and say this is probably the closest one so far.
Yeah. Okay. Next team, you kind of already touched on them a little bit. This is the 17-18 installment of the Warriors. The peak Warriors.
That team's really good.
Yeah.
Peak KD defensively, probably.
Yep.
Draymond at his peak. Clay's still a really good defender. Still have Iggy. Steph's the liability, but okay. I think the argument here is versatility and Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's the pitch, I guess. If you were trying to convince somebody of it being Golden State, that would have to be your selling point, because I think every other selling point probably leads towards OKC. And I think I'm still going to go OKC.
I would take OKC as well. I think you kind of actually hit the nail on the head. That was my entire thought process. I think between Iggy, KD, and Draymond, maybe the most versatile defensive front court we've ever seen. I think people forget how good defensively that version of KD was. He could pretty much switch 1 through 5, like I'm using that term loosely, but could pretty much switch 1 through 5, was just like one of the 10 to 15 best rim protectors in the league. And so when you have guys like Draymond and Iggy who are always going to make sure KD's in the right spot, he has the impact of like an all defensive caliber defender on those teams. And then you got like Iggy and Draymond can both just switch across the board. They're a smarter defense. That might be the smartest defensive duo ever. Iggy and Draymond. Yeah. That might be the smartest defensive duo ever. Steph's also a really good smart team defender.
Yeah.
Clay as your point of attack guy, perfectly fine.
This is like around peak Clay.
Yeah, I would say one difference between the Warriors and the Thunder is the Warriors would, I think, struggle more with a slasher like Anthony Edwards. Between the kind of lack of size, not really, but like they're not as big as the Thunder in the front line. And then also the fact that Clay's one weakness as a point of attack defender is not agile enough to stop like the fastest guards in the league. So I do think if you look specifically at a guy like Anthony Edwards, or even during that time, Russell Westbrook, I think the Thunder would have a better time dealing with a slasher like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Next team.
Is it 2016 Spurs?
Yep. 2016 Spurs.
I'm good.
You're good.
At my job. I'm good at my job.
Oh, I thought you were saying you're good at just like dismissing them completely. They were the eighth best. They were the 8th best regular season defense of all time. 7.4 points below league average offensive rating.
I'm going OKC.
I agree.
I'm not dismissing them, but I'm going OKC.
I agree, and I think most of it has to do with the like kind of what we saw in the playoffs, where the Spurs were running those double bigs with Aldridge and Duncan, and both really lack foot speed. So you kind of have two like things you can attack. And then also we saw like between Tony Parker's lack of size, they were kind of very reliant on Danny Green and Kawhi to do a lot of heavy lifting. And then Westbrook just absolutely picked them apart in the playoffs. Like as a slasher, he just diced them up. They looked completely helpless against Russell Westbrook.
Who was their first round matchup that year? I'm trying to remember.
It was Memphis, I think. I want to say it was Memphis. Or actually, it might have been Houston. No, Houston played Golden State.
No, it wasn't Houston. Yeah.
Houston played Golden State. I think it might have been Memphis. Let me pull it up. It was Memphis. They swept them.
There we go. You're good at your job too.
They swept them very easily. That Memphis team was bad. They didn't have Mike Conley or Marc Gasol. Their starting five in that series was Jordan Farmar.
Ew.
Matt Barnes. Oh my gosh. Tony Allen.
Is this David Fizdale coached Memphis Grizzlies? Is that the right era?
I'm not sure.
Or am I a year early?
I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm a year late.
David Yorger. Dave Yorger.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I don't even know who that is. I'm not going to lie.
I think he's with New Orleans right now.
Yeah, I don't know who that. But Memphis is starting lineup in that series. Tony Allen only started 2 games, so I'm going to use the other 2 games to hammer home how bad this team was. Jordan Farmar, Matt Barnes, Vince Carter, Zach Randolph, and guess the 5. Guess the 5.
Marc Gasol.
Birdman.
Yeah, that's right.
Birdman.
Damn, I do not know ball. Yorger is in Milwaukee.
I don't even know who he is. So you know ball more than me.
He hasn't been in Sacramento since 2019, so I'm a solid 6 years late.
You said New Orleans.
I said New Orleans?
You said talking about Sacramento. You said New Orleans.
Oh, well. Yeah, I'm taking OKC.
I agree. Next team, and this one is very, very much about the era difference. And this is the don't guess. Don't even guess. This is the team where I start to really struggle. Because I think relative to era, this team was able to almost exploit the rules or exploit the way the game was played to their advantage.
I think I know what year you're going. Is this 2014?
It is.
Okay, I know what team it is.
The 2014 Pacers.
Yeah.
This is
so. Was this George Hill? Who was their 2, or did they kind of roll Paul as a 2? Am I tripping?
Was it not Lance?
Oh yeah. So George, Lance, PG. Are we still David West, Roy Hibbert?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm gonna flat out say 2014 Paul George is the best defender between these 2 teams.
No,
he is.
He's not. He's not better defender.
That is a 6'9" forward who was arguably the best screen navigator in NBA history. Was a legit weak side rim protector and could switch across the board. 2014 Paul George, he might have actually been a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. Let me see. He was he wasn't, but he was all defensive first team. He was 7th in Defensive Player of the Year.
Has that logic? Oh wait, never mind. We're doing positions back then. I forgot. Hashtag wings get no love for Depoy.
No, Paul George. Paul George. I think 2014 Paul George is the best defender in this matchup. But I understand the Caruso and Chet argument. Those are the big 3. Also Roy Hibbert's in that group too.
Yeah, Roy Hibbert. That's tough.
I think there's one selling point that I'm gonna take OKC on, and this is where I was at when I was doing this back and forth. Indiana's playoff defense was not nearly as good as it was in the regular season. They went from -7 in the regular season to -3 in the playoffs, which is a pretty decent drop off. And I think that mostly has to do with the fact that Hibbert was the slowest player in the league. So for him to be he was obviously this generational rim protector, and every time they were able to keep him in the paint, it was oh yeah, we can't score. We cannot score on this guy. And David West and Paul George were just ridiculous as your front court alongside that guy. I think the offenses in the playoffs were hey, we can try and pull Hibbert into this action. Specifically, Miami had a good time or a great time doing this. And Hibbert kind of not got played off the floor, but just was not nearly as impactful as he was in the regular season. And so to me, there's no defender in OKC you look at and you're okay, his value falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
If anything, the defenders all get better in the playoffs.
Yeah, because then also Caruso, I mean, this has nothing to do with it. Caruso turned into a 40% playoff 3-point shooter. So there's your one knock to try to get him off the floor.
Yeah.
I still lean OKC, but I would argue this is maybe even... Okay, I have a better question for you. This one or 2019 Raptors?
I knew you were going to say that. Right when your head went there, I knew that's what was coming. I'm going to say... I'll take the Raptors for the reason I just described.
I agree.
The reason I just described. But I do wonder how differently we talk about those Pacers had they not faced the Miami Heat, with LeBron James. and Dwayne Wade. Like, how much differently we look at it. Like, LeBron got his game off in that series. It was a lower volume series for him, but super efficient. So yeah, I think that might be.
So what you're
dragging them
saying?
down.
So what you're saying is the GOAT strikes again?
Something like
So
that.
it's-
Yeah, something like that.
Is that what I'm
Okay.
hearing?
Next defense. I would actually say this one's pretty easy for me with the Thunder, but I just wanted to throw them in there because we're talking about this era. 2013 Grit and Grind Grizzlies. I think they're kind of.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, I think the Pacers are just better than the Grizzlies during that time.
I think like the three other teams I've had the like toughest time with are all better than that Memphis team. So like,
Yeah.
by process, like I'm taking.
Agreed.
That's kind of how I'm going with it from here. Like you have to be on 17 Warriors, 14 Pacers, 19 Raptors
Yeah.
level for
Okay.
me to like.
Yeah. Okay. This one is. I think
You can
is
throw
on
that
that
those
level.
Celtics group in there too. My bad.
This next one I think is on that level, and this will be a pretty interesting one. The 2011 Bulls. Who, by the way, before you get into it, I want to say
well, dang, Joakim Noah.
same thing that I talked about with Shai. The reason this team was able to exist is because of Derrick Rose's heavy lifting on offense. But
Yeah.
2011 Bulls.
Hold
You
on.
got Joakim Noah as like your basically do everything five. He was switching on to LeBron in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Great drop and hedge defender, great rim protector, great rebounder. Joakim Noah could just do everything. He was one of the best defenders on the planet during that time. Luol Deng, one of the best defensive wings of the century.
Yeah.
Could do literally everything as a wing. Taj Gibson, Boozer. I would say Boozer's obviously a weaker link than Gibson, but did they have Ronnie Brewer at the two? Was that their two?
They had Ronnie Brewer. Yeah.
That's a squad, man. That is a squad. Coached by Phibbs. Also had Kurt Thomas. That defense was stacked.
Okay.
That defense was stacked.
Um.
Yeah, where's your head at? Where's your head at?
I mean, like, if we're looking in terms of all-time relative defensive efficiency, it's the sixth best defense of all time.
They actually had the exact same regular season relative defensive rating as the Thunder, negative 6.9.
Yeah.
They're filthy. They're filthy, and it translated to the playoffs too.
They Keith Boggins. He started in Game 1 of that Heat Bulls series.
He started every game of the playoffs. Their rotation in the playoffs was starting lineup was Rose, Bogans, Dang,
Bogans.
Boozer, Noah, and then off the bench it was Ronnie Brewer, Corver, and Taj Gibson.
Okay. Well, all right, I'm going to run down the group of four that I had. I'm probably taking this defense over Boston. I think I'm taking this defense over Indiana, actually.
That's the tough one because it's like similar time frame. They both went up against LeBron.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think I'm taking this one over Indiana. I think I'm still gonna go KC. I think this is absolutely in this group though, but I do think I'm still gonna go OKC.
Yeah, I agree. Next one is another semi-easy one for me, but I kind of just had to throw them in there because, again, era, they had a generational defender. '09
Yeah.
Magic.
OKC.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to me. I think Dwight being, like, at his peak defensively makes this interesting because then you got just this world-class rim protector and drop defender and rebound. Also, like, all-time great rebounder. Dwight's one of the best rebounders ever. You got like versatility from Shard, Turkoglu, and all
Careful,
them
Laker
guys.
fans might say you're pushing for him to get re-signed. It's the year of our Lord 2025.
Well, he's the Jokic stopper after all.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think the Magic have some interesting advantages in terms of Dwight is to me a better rim protector than Chet, like noticeably. And then also he's one of the best post defenders ever. But we saw how OKC handles post ups. They've got the tools. So I think OKC. OKC's got this one.
I have a clear top five so far, but go ahead, keep going.
Well, that top five is about to get busted because the next team is the 2008 Celtics.
And the 2008 Celtics are pretty clearly like I think this is the best non-OKC defense we've said so far.
By a landslide. This team, this is Now we're getting into like the heaviest hitters in NBA history. The '08 Celtics in the regular season had a negative 8.6 relative defensive rating, which is third all time, third in NBA history. And they had maybe the best defender of actually, to me, pretty comfortably the best defender of the 21st century on their team. Everything we talked about with like the advantage of having a Draymond, imagine that on steroids, is basically what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The weakest defender in their rotation was Ray Allen, and he was fine.
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. You got Garnett at the 4, alongside a big body in Perkins. You got Rondo, who was an all defensive caliber guard. Paul Pierce was like pretty, not like quite all defensive level, but Paul Pierce was a really, really good defender for this team. James Posey, great defender off the bench. PJ Brown, another great defender off the bench. That's pretty much the bulk of their rotation. I mean, you got Sam Cassell and Leon
Rondo.
Poe.
I don't know if you said Rondo already.
I did say Rondo.
Okay, my bad.
All defensive level guard. Yeah, man, they could force turnovers. They could protect the rim. They could switch. They were amazing at rebounding. This team is this '08. The '08 Celtics were so good defensively that they could defend 2025 offenses.
Yeah. Okay, if you're well, what's your argument if you're OKC?
If you're OKC, I think you have more defensive depth on the wings. Like I think you have more versatile wings. Like I think between like Rondo, Pierce, Posey, that's 3 really good perimeter defenders. Ray Allen's another guy I'd throw in there as like a 4th, just like solid perimeter defender. But if you're OKC, Caruso, J-Dub, Wallace, and Dort is 4 all defensive level wing defenders. And that right there would probably be like where you start your argument. Also more versatile man defenders like Allen and Rondo can't really switch up like these guys can. So that'd be where the argument starts.
But then if you're Boston, the argument is like it clearly starts at the fact that we just had the best defensive player of the century. And
also the fact that 2008 offenses weren't hunting for mismatches like that. Way less action to cover, so you weren't pulling KG into action. Or actually, well, first of all, Celtics wanted KG in every action. But even if they wanted him as your low man or whatever, like you couldn't pull him into it because the spacing was different, the movement was different. So KG's defensive impact was just like this absurd thing. And also, like I said, they weren't really hunting for mismatches. So like Rondo and Allen being less switchable isn't as important as it would be today.
And then even if you like, okay, we kind of adjusted down for air. If we adjust them up to 2025, okay, cool. You are maybe switch hunting a little bit more, like a Ray or a Rondo to a certain extent. But to a certain extent, bro, like KG is such like Boston. That version of Boston could just do whatever. They could get super creative tactically and just make sure cool. We're just gonna make sure KG. Either A, if we want to bring him in the action, we could pre-switch and bring KG up, and now we just nuked your offensive set. Or, okay, cool, we want to use KG as our rim protector, and, okay, cool, Rondo or Ray gets beat by bigger wing, and it's Kevin Garnett at the rim.
I think that's the problem, too, because it's like, thinking about it from a 2025 lens, you don't want Kevin Garnett in the action, because he's the best in-action defender maybe ever. In terms of his ability to play at the level, to drop his hands, his length, he had like a 7'8" wingspan or something stupid with his height. And then the ability to grab every rebound. I think that's the main thing. But it's also like, oh yeah, and then of course the switchability. Like he's maybe the most switchable defender ever. So it's like if he's in the action, he's gonna switch out, and now you actually have even less of an advantage. Like legitimately, you could argue that Kevin Garnett was the best man defender in the '08 Celtics, and that's what makes it scary. Because it's like if our plan is to attack KG, okay, we'll just switch him, and now you have less of an advantage. Or they could even get real freaky and use KG as your point of attack guy, and then like have him as a switch out guy. Like, okay, I'm gonna switch down to a big, and now I'm in a position to protect the rim. And then it's like, okay, let's get KG out of the action. Now he's the greatest like defensive playmaker ever, and he's gonna blow up all your actions from the weak side. You can't avoid Kevin Garnett. He's like the most inevitable defender ever. So you always just get this monumental impact that can't be limited. And also, in 2025, they probably get like more creative with their lineups because KG and Perkins can get funky defensively. Just put Posey. Posey's a great defender, and him and Pierce can both protect the rim from the weak side. So now you got Rondo, Allen, Pierce, Posey, KG.
Is this the best like regular season like relative defensive rating?
It's third.
It's third.
It's third behind. Well, one other team we're going to talk about actually next is first all time, and then the 64 Celtics are second.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Call it a cop out. Don't care. I'm putting OKC and Boston on the exact same pedestal.
Okay, and then once we get to these other teams, we'll weed it out from there.
Okay.
We'll weed it out from there. Okay. I'll agree with you for now. We'll come back to that. We'll loop back to the Celtics in a sec. The next
Are you going 04 Spurs?
The 04 Spurs with the number one.
I blew you cover. I apologize.
Regular season defense of all time. I would actually say the 05 Spurs were probably the better like playoff defense though, but 04 Spurs was the team that had the greatest regular season defense of all time. So what do you do with that?
I'm giving you the floor.
I don't want the floor.
I don't want it either.
We're talking about another defender kind of in that tier with Kevin Garnett. Tim Duncan at his absolute peak.
Is this the year, not using this against them, 04, this is the year LA beat them?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. All right.
Yes, it is. 04 Spurs, just to run through the rotation real quick. Starters were Tony Parker, Bruce Bowen, which, by the way, if you don't know, Bruce Bowen is like one of the best man defenders ever.
Yeah.
Tony Parker, Bruce Bowen. They had Hito Turkoglu at the 3. Then they started Duncan and Rasho Nesterovic. So you still got that double big thing going on. And 04 was the peak of the dead ball. This was right before they adjusted the hand checking rules. So 04, we're talking peak dead ball. We're talking Bruce Bowen with hand checking with 2 centers, one of which is a top 5 to 10 defender in NBA history. Off the bench, you've got Manu, who is one of the most underrated defenders ever. You still got Robert Horry there playing big minutes. What do you do with the Spurs, man?
Okay, let me ask you this. All right, we'll process of elimination. Are you taking them over every team after 2011?
Oh. For the sake of argument, we'll say sure. We'll say sure.
Is the team okay? Who would be the team you wouldn't?
Well, 2019 Raptors, I think, are an interesting one still.
Okay.
And then, of course, like the other teams we talked about that are in that group, like Celtics, Bulls, Pacers. But I think I would prefer the 04 Spurs over all of them, very marginally. But here's where you get into it, like 04 Spurs or 08 Celtics. I actually feel like the Celtics have a clear advantage there.
That's where I was eventually going to lead to because I also was thinking 08 Celtics.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, yeah, I think Spurs, so far, I think Spurs are like just the smallest smidge below the 08 Celtics and the 25 Thunder. But also, what if we go a year earlier and get David Robinson in the mix? How does that change things? Because now I'm thinking, like, statistically, they weren't as dominant in the regular season as a defense, but they were still one of the best regular season defenses ever. And not only, okay, I'm going to outright say it, the 03 Spurs are the best defensive version, because I totally forgot. They also had Steven Jackson as a full-time starter.
And then they still had Bruce, right?
Yes, they still had Bruce. So their starting 5 this year was Tony Parker, Steven Jackson, Bruce Bowen, Duncan, and David Robinson. And then Manu off the bench. Oh, man. Oh, man.
This is the year they beat New Jersey?
Yeah, this is the year they won the championship. So we'll say the 03 Spurs. Now that David Robinson's in the mix,
this conversation is a lot more interesting now.
I don't know what to think. So I actually want to pull it up. Dude, okay. This is crazy. So I pulled up the greatest regular season defenses ever. By statistics, like by relative defensive rating. 05 Spurs, 11th regular season. 04 Spurs, we already talked about, are first. You've got 06 Spurs, 18th. 07 Spurs, 19th. We already talked about the 16 Spurs. They were up there in like the top 10. 98 Spurs, 46th. 08 Spurs, 47th. 2000 Spurs, 54th. 2017 Spurs, 60th. This whole just stretch of Spurs, 01 Spurs, 69th. I don't know where the 2003 Spurs are regular season wise. 03 Spurs regular season actually are 172nd. They were only -4 in the regular season, but -8 in the playoffs. And that's the selling point right there. -8 in the playoffs, which actually is higher than the '08 Celtics.
But still behind. I mean, yeah, OKC's one.
OKC was
in the
-12.
playoffs.
They're number one.
Yeah. Okay, I think the conversation is them or '08 Celtics.
I don't know. I don't know. Can we put them on the group too?
All right, we'll put them on the group. They're all on stage one.
Okay. And the next one I actually think might be a tier jump. This next team might be a tier above what we just talked about.
A tier above OKC,
yes.
Boston, and who am I blanking on?
Someone bad. I'll say they made a mid-season trade. And then after that point in the regular season, they were a -11 defense. They were a -11 defense after making a mid-season trade, and then had a -11 defense in the playoffs and won a championship.
I think. Go ahead.
Who's your guess?
Is this wait, we're still in the 2000s, right?
Yep.
Okay, is this the 2001 Lakers?
No, you just
tripping?
skipped a team. The 04 Pistons.
Oh, shit.
The 04 Pistons.
No. Okay, hold on, wait. In my defense, in
03.
Okay.
You were thinking 03.
I'm thinking 03, so I'm going back.
Okay, I hear you.
If we were still in 04, 05 or whatever, I would have thought of Detroit. Yeah, Detroit, yeah. Okay.
I think the Pistons are. I actually don't even really think it's too hard of a discussion. I think they're the best defense of the century.
Yeah.
Like,
so like we're formulating a top 5 as of right now. My top 5 overall would be Pistons 1. Gun to my head, I'm going OKC 2, Boston 3, San Antonio 4. Gun to my head, that's my top 4.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna go Boston over OKC.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go Detroit 1, Boston 2, 3 OKC, 4 San Antonio.
And then 5, I'm picking. For me, it's between like.
I'm gonna give it to the Raptors. Give it to the Raptors.
I was gonna say I'm deciding between like peak Warriors, 19 Raptors, and then like I guess the third for me would have been like Chicago because I lean Chicago over Indiana personally. So like Raptors Warriors, what would be that 5 spot? To be different, I'm gonna go Warriors at 5.
I think to the Pistons point, they're the only team that I think has like less holes to poke than the Thunder that we've talked about. Like between the Thunder obviously are pretty flawless, but it's still like, okay, the size and physicality thing, they haven't struggled with it, but maybe compared to a Pistons team that has Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace, that's a clear Pistons advantage. Like Ben Wallace is maybe the best post defender of the century. And he's also another guy that has that mega Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Draymond type of impact. Just on that level as well as a weak side guy, as a pick and roll defender, as a rebounder, rim protector, all that good stuff. Also had some of the best hands ever. In the 04 playoffs, Ben Wallace averaged 2 steals. 2 steals a game. Absolutely insane. Tayshaun Prince was one of the best weak side wings ever. Also an elite man defender. And then of course you've got the block. I think that might have been 05 in the playoffs, the chase down.
Yeah.
That's the only front court that I would say is considerably more versatile than the Warriors front court. Prince, Sheed, Ben, they would switch everything, they would rotate everything, and there was nothing you could do, even if you were Kobe and Shaq. You were not breaking that defense down. Billups, good defender. Rip Hamilton, fine defender. Corliss Williamson off the bench. Lindsey Hunter off the bench. 2 very good wing defenders. Yeah. I think Pistons were just a damn near flawless defense in a time where, like I said, 04 was the peak of the dead ball. So we're talking about a near flawless defense that could have defended in 2025, but putting them in the worst offensive season ever. It's a pretty clear argument to me.
Yeah.
You brought up the 01 Lakers. You want to touch on them real quick?
No, I thought that was the direction you're going because like I don't know if that team, I forget that team made a midseason trade, but I do remember like they were really hurt. Like I think Fish was hurt that year. I want to say Kobe or Shaq missed time that year too, and then they got healthy midseason, and they were an elite defense the rest of the year. And then in the playoffs, they were also an elite defense. So that's the only reason why I went that direction.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's another one of the better defenses. They were actually a bad regular season defense. They were like 20 or something like that. But in the playoffs, they were the number 1 defense, and they obviously. I don't think they're in this discussion, but they're obviously a very, very good defense. So yeah, I say we cut the conversation here. We don't need to get into 80s, 90s because then we're just naming hundreds of teams. But all that's to say, we both agree that this 2025 Thunder team is in a tier of four defenses of the 21st century. The early 2000 Spurs, the peak Pistons, the '08 Celtics, and then the Thunder. That's a group of four that we have both as the best defenses of the century. We both agree that the Thunder are the best defensive team since 2008, so the best defense we've seen in 17 years. Yeah, any last points you want to make on the Thunder defense?
It's not even a Thunder point. I think this is a basketball or just analyst point in general. Just believe like what your eyes are just saying in that current moment, please. Like, I feel like so many times we are so afraid to give that player or that team their crowning moment or whatever, or give them their, I don't know if giving them props, because I feel like I don't even know if I can say that, but give them their props or their credit for what we're witnessing in the moment. Because like to your point earlier, there was so much noise. There's so much flat out ignoring the regular season of whether it's Shai and his offensive brilliance. Oh, well, he's not going to get the same calls in the playoffs. His scoring doesn't translate, blah, blah, blah. Even though, by the way, last year tells you, like, Shai as an offensive player translates to the playoffs. The stupidest thing ever. Last year, okay, maybe you could have said that because it would have been the first time we've seen him as the offensive engine in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But after last year, that was the most annoying part of it, actually, was like after last year, I'm like, dog, the question should not be about Shai. I can understand some of the other stuff.
I was gonna say same thing. This isn't even about the Thunder, but same thing with Halliburton. Like, he had that playoff run where he proved that his game translated to the playoffs. Yeah. And then everyone just forgot that, like, collectively decided, like, it just didn't happen this season. And then going into the playoffs, Halliburton was the most overrated player and like, was unanimously viewed as like this player who lacks the skills to translate to the playoffs after we already saw it.
Like 32 and 15 with no turnovers.
Which that'll be a discussion next time. We're going to talk about Indiana's offense at some point.
Good God.
On this podcast.
And like I said, just flat out ignoring some of the stuff. When, like, you're saying the regular season, this is like a historic caliber of defense. And I think the conversation, historic doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the best ever, but like one of the few best defenses of the century, right? And the conversation that we kind of put them in. So please, because we do so many times with so many elite players or elite teams, and we just like decide to not give them their credit and just believe what our eyes are telling us in that moment. And in the moment, like in all season, our eyes have told us Shai is an elite offensive player, one of the best offensive guards we have seen. If we're going to go in this end, we could have that conversation too. One of the best offensive guards we've seen in the century. And this is one of the best defensive teams, if you want to go personnel, tactical schemes and stuff like that. One of the best defensive teams we've ever seen. And it should have, I'm not going to say universally recognized because it's still not, but it should have taken, damn near 100 games for us to realize this. When it's been pretty clearly the case since, like, game 10. Like, what are we doing?
Yep. No, exactly. 68 wins, the highest net rating ever. With half their team injured. Chet misses half the season. You start playing J-Dub at the 5.
Ihart doesn't play until January or late December.
Caruso missed a bunch of games as well. Wasn't even eligible for all defense. So, all these injuries.
J-Dub was playing the 5. That's how injured they were.
Yep. All these injuries. 68 wins. The highest net rating ever. The highest relative playoff defensive rating ever. 4 games away from an NBA championship. And Shai has been performing like an MVP from start to finish. Not just an MVP.
Shout out J-Dub, too. Especially since, like, middle of the Denver series. Shout out J-Dub.
And shout out Chet for being, like, Chet legitimately was an all-NBA caliber player in the conference finals. Like, the big three is showing out, and then they've got all these defensive pieces. OKC is absolutely insane, and in our opinion, the 4th best defense, or your opinion, the 3rd best defense of the century. Or did you have him 2nd?
I had him 2nd. You had him 3rd.
I had him 3rd. Yeah, I'm blanking. Okay.
Yeah, my top 5 was Detroit, OKC, Boston, and then
San Antonio, and then Golden State.
Yeah.
Good. And then mine was Detroit, Boston, OKC, San Antonio, Toronto.
Yeah.
but in our opinion, both the top 3 defense of the century with one of the best. We both agree is one of the best players ever in Shai. Yeah, insane team, and I can't wait to see what they do in the NBA Finals. If you enjoyed this breakdown, this historic analysis type thing, definitely a different episode from us. We really appreciate you guys dropping a like, comment, 5 stars, all that good stuff. Make sure to follow us on social media. Sean is on Twitter at Sean_DAVI. He's on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. He's on YouTube at the Los Angeles Lakers Network and the Sports Headline Show. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff on Tyler Britton _. And of course, my main content can be found on Hoop Venue. Also, little plug, if you want to watch the rest of the playoffs with me live, I've been streaming every game on playback.tv/Hoop Venue. So hop in there. But yeah, man, once again, we really appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you guys next time for episode 49.